What is power? How does it work? And why do so few truly understand it? Since the dawn of civilization, power has been the invisible force shaping empires, destroying nations, and defining the fate of millions. Some seize it through strength, others through intelligence. But there's a secret that few grasp. Real power is not just about force, it's about strategy. Two brilliant minds unraveled this enigma, Sun Tzu and Machiavelli. Two thinkers, separated by centuries and vastly different cultures, but who arrived at fascinating conclusions about how to gain and maintain power. Sun Tzu, the legendary Chinese strategist, believed that the greatest victory is the one that requires no battle at all. To him, a true master of war defeats his enemy before the enemy even realizes they've lost. His greatest weapons: strategy, patience, and adaptation. Machiavelli, the controversial Renaissance philosopher, saw power through a harsher lens. Ruling requires cold calculation, cunning, and often the willingness to act without scruples. He believed that an effective leader cannot be bound by traditional morality. They must do whatever is necessary to maintain control. But which of these philosophies is more effective? What can we learn from them? And how do these strategies still shape the modern world, from politics to business, from relationships to personal growth? In this video, you'll uncover the hidden strategies that drive the game of power and learn how to apply them in your own life. Because whether you like it or not, power is always in play, and those who understand it are the ones who shape the world to their will. War has always been seen as a game of strength, where the side with the biggest army or the best weapons comes out on top. But Sun Tzu saw war completely differently. To him, victory wasn't just about brute force, it was about intelligence, timing, and the strategic use of illusion. Who was Sun Tzu? Little is known about Sun Tzu's life. He is believed to have lived around the 5th century BC during China's Warring States period, an era of constant conflict between rival kingdoms. His masterpiece, The Art of War, is not just a military manual. It's a philosophical guide on how to win any conflict, whether on the battlefield, in politics, or business. His ideas have influenced not only generals and emperors, but also modern leaders, from corporate CEOs to political strategists. After all, life itself is a battle of interests, and those who master the art of strategy have an undeniable advantage over others. The core principles of Sun Tzu's strategy. The greatest victory is the one that requires no battle. The power of anticipation and indirect control. Unlike Western thought, which often values direct confrontation and overpowering an opponent, Sun Tzu saw war as a last resort. His most famous teaching states, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." This means that a true master strategist wins before the battle even begins, by psychologically weakening the enemy, breaking their alliances, and undermining their confidence. Apple and Samsung don't declare war on each other every year. Instead, they use advertising campaigns, technological innovation, and market dominance to influence consumers' choices, winning the competition without destroying the other. Or think of a heated debate. The winner is often not the person who speaks the loudest, but the one who anticipates their opponent's arguments and dismantles them before they are even spoken. The power of intelligence and deception. The art of controlling without being noticed. Another core lesson from Sun Tzu is the power of information and misdirection. A great strategist never reveals their true intentions. Instead, they deceive, confuse, and control how their opponent perceives the situation. If you are strong, appear weak. If you are near, appear far. If you are far, appear near. This is essential in any game of power. Keeping your true intentions hidden and making others underestimate you can be the difference between winning and losing. During World War II, the Allies launched Operation Fortitude to trick the Nazis about the real location of D-Day. They created fake armies, tanks, and radio signals to mislead Hitler. ensuring the invasion of Normandy was a success. In negotiations, those who reveal their plans too early lose power. The ones who stay unpredictable and mysterious often walk away with the best deal. Adaptation and fluidity. A wise leader moves with the circumstances. Sun Tzu believed that being rigid was a weakness. True power comes from the ability to adapt to any situation. He compared the strategic mind to water. Be like water. Water never resists. It shapes itself to the terrain, finds invisible paths, and slowly wears down even the hardest stone. This means that a great leader or strategist doesn't stick to a single plan. They observe the battlefield and adjust their approach when necessary. Nelson Mandela had every reason to seek revenge after being imprisoned for 27 years. Instead, he adapted, choosing forgiveness as a strategic move to unite South Africa and prevent civil war. Netflix and Amazon embraced digital transformation before their competitors and dominated their markets. Meanwhile, companies like Blockbuster, which resisted change, vanished. The secret to power, according to Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu's philosophy teaches that true power doesn't come from brute force. It comes from the ability to see the game before others, control perception, and adapt to the environment. Those who apply these principles avoid unnecessary conflict, anticipate threats, and stay one step ahead at all times. But is strategy alone enough to gain and maintain power? Or sometimes, do you have to get your hands dirty? That's where Machiavelli comes in. If Sun Tzu saw power as a game of anticipation and strategic intelligence, Machiavelli viewed it in a much harsher, more pragmatic way. To him, the world is not a just place, and those who wish to rule cannot afford to be naive. Who was Machiavelli? Niccolo Machiavelli was born in 1469 in Renaissance Italy, a time of political intrigue, betrayal, and constant warfare between city-states. He worked as a diplomat, political advisor, and writer. But his masterpiece, The Prince, is what immortalized him. This book is not a guide to kindness or virtue. On the contrary, it teaches how one can gain and maintain power in a world where people are not always good, alliances are fragile, and the weak get crushed. If Sun Tzu teaches us how to win without fighting, Machiavelli teaches us how to fight without remorse. The core principles of Machiavellian thinking. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. This is one of Machiavelli's most controversial ideas, but it doesn't mean that a ruler should be cruel for pleasure, only that fear is a more reliable tool than love. People may betray a leader they love if it benefits them, but they will hesitate to betray someone they fear. Julius Caesar was loved by his troops and the Roman people, but that didn't stop his closest allies from betraying and assassinating him. Stalin, on the other hand, ruled the Soviet Union through fear, eliminating any opposition. He was not loved, but his power remained unshaken until his death. In leadership, bosses who try to be their employees' friends often lose authority and struggle with discipline. Meanwhile, leaders who command respect and maintain firm boundaries are less likely to be challenged. Morality is relative in the game of power, pragmatism above ethics. What separates Machiavelli from classical philosophers like Plato and Aristotle is his amoral view of politics. He argued that an effective ruler cannot be bound by rigid ideas of right and wrong. In politics, what matters is not how things are, but how they appear to be. This means that sometimes a ruler must get their hands dirty to maintain stability. If lying, manipulating, or eliminating an opponent is necessary to keep the state secure, then it must be done. During World War II, Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt allied with Joseph Stalin to defeat Hitler, even though Stalin was a brutal dictator. This is a perfect example of Machiavellian thinking. Sometimes, choosing the lesser evil is a strategic necessity. In business, companies form alliances with competitors when it benefits them, only to break those ties when they're no longer useful. Pragmatism always wins over idealistic morality. the need to appear virtuous, while acting without scruples. Machiavelli didn't deny the importance of virtue. He simply pointed out that appearing virtuous is often more important than actually being virtuous. Everyone sees what you appear to be, but few know what you really are. He advised rulers to maintain a good public image while being willing to act ruthlessly behind the scenes. Napoleon Bonaparte presented himself as a champion of the French Revolution, defending liberty, equality, and fraternity. But when the opportunity arose, he crowned himself emperor and ruled as an absolute monarch. His public image was revolutionary, but his actions were dictatorial. Many influencers and public figures build an image of integrity and kindness online, but behind the scenes, they make cold, calculated decisions to advance their interests. The secret to power, according to Machiavelli. Machiavelli teaches us that the world is not fair, and those who govern cannot afford to be naive. Ruling requires calculating risks, knowing when to be cruel and when to be generous, when to fake virtue, and when to act ruthlessly behind the scenes. But this presents a dilemma. If power is based only on manipulation and fear, can it truly last? Both Sun Tzu and Machiavelli offer different paths to power. One focused on invisible strategy, the other on brutal realism. But which one is more effective? Now that we understand Sun Tzu's and Machiavelli's views on power, the big question arises. Which approach is more effective? On one side, Sun Tzu teaches that the best victory is the one achieved without fighting. A true strategist controls the conditions, weakens the enemy, and adapts like water. His power comes from intelligence, patience, and invisibility. On the other side, Machiavelli shows us the brutal reality of power. He argues that the world is ruled by self-interest, and those who cling to naive morality are destined to be manipulated. A true leader must know when to deceive, when to impose fear, and when to appear virtuous to maintain control. But which approach really works? The answer depends on the context. Sun Tzu's indirect control versus Machiavelli's direct domination. Sun Tzu believes that war is a psychological game. He promotes illusion, intelligence, and anticipation to defeat the enemy before the battle even begins. His thinking aligns with Taoist philosophy, which states, "The wise man wins without fighting, for he masters himself before mastering others." This means that true power doesn't come from force, but from influencing the situation without others realizing it. Machiavelli, however, argues that power requires direct action. A ruler cannot rely solely on diplomacy or invisible strategy. Sometimes, it's necessary to use force, manipulate alliances, and eliminate threats without hesitation. Sun Tzu's approach is like a company that invests in innovation, market control, and strategic partnerships to crush competitors without directly attacking them. Machiavelli's approach is like a business leader who buys politicians, manipulates contracts, and takes down rivals through aggressive tactics. In the end, both methods can work, but Machiavelli's approach involves more risk and creates more enemies along the way, winning without war versus holding power at all costs. Sun Tzu teaches that direct conflict should be avoided whenever possible. He emphasizes flexibility and patience, as a wise leader knows that not every battle is worth fighting. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Machiavelli, however, takes a much more aggressive stance. He knows that those who gain power can never relax, because there will always be someone trying to take it away. Men forget the death of their father faster than the loss of their wealth. This means that, for Machiavelli, power is never guaranteed. Anyone who wants to rule must always be alert and willing to eliminate threats before they grow. Sun Tzu's philosophy aligns with politicians who build alliances, use diplomacy, and gain advantages without direct confrontation. Machiavelli's philosophy fits authoritarian leaders who eliminate opponents swiftly and rule through fear to prevent rebellion. History shows that both methods work, but Machiavelli's requires constant balancing between strength and manipulation to avoid collapse. Strategic harmony versus political manipulation. The biggest difference between Sun Tzu and Machiavelli lies in how they see the balance of power. Sun Tzu sees power as a natural flow. He believes that, just like in nature, everything changes, and those who adapt succeed. His strategy is built on patience, detachment, and observation. Machiavelli sees power as a game of manipulation. He understands that humans are driven by self-interest, and that those who want to rule must master the art of deception, persuasion, and eliminating rivals. Following Sun Tzu means learning how to read people, avoid unnecessary conflicts, and position yourself strategically so others naturally respect you. Following Machiavelli means knowing how to exploit people's weaknesses, build an image of power, and eliminate threats before they grow. Strategy or manipulation, which works best? The truth is both are essential tools. Sun Tzu teaches how to rise without making enemies. His approach is useful in negotiations, leadership, and even relationships, as it avoids direct conflict and builds natural respect. Machiavelli teaches how to survive at the top. His vision is useful in highly competitive environments, where naivety can be fatal. For those already in power, understanding Machiavelli is crucial to avoid being betrayed and manipulated. The key is balance. The greatest leaders in history have combined both styles. Napoleon Bonaparte used Sun Tzu's strategy to weaken enemies before battle, but applied Machiavelli's tactics to manipulate alliances and eliminate opponents. Steve Jobs followed Sun Tzu's approach to dominate the tech market without open war, but also used Machiavelli's ruthlessness in dealing with competitors and employees. Being only strategic can make you too passive and vulnerable. Being only manipulative can make you hated and isolated. True power comes from knowing when to be like Sun Tzu and when to act like Machiavelli. What have we learned from Sun Tzu and Machiavelli? Both were masters of power, yet their methods were radically different. Sun Tzu teaches us that true power comes from invisible strategy, winning without fighting, anticipating the enemy's moves, and adapting fluidly to any situation. His thinking aligns with Eastern philosophy, which values balance and indirect control. Machiavelli, on the other hand, shows us that real power requires pragmatism and cold calculation. The world is ruled by interests, not morality. He teaches us to manipulate perceptions, command respect through fear, and do whatever is necessary to maintain control. But which approach is better? The truth is, real power doesn't come from brute force or pure manipulation. It comes from the intelligence to read the game and act wisely. The secret of power in the modern world. Today, these ideas still shape the world we live in. In politics, we see leaders who follow Machiavelli, ruling through fear, and others who follow Sun Tzu, winning through diplomacy and indirect influence. In business, companies use Sun Tzu's strategy to dominate markets without direct confrontation, but also apply Machiavellian tactics when manipulating public perception or eliminating competition. In personal life, understanding these dynamics makes you sharper, whether in dealing with colleagues, negotiating, or managing relationships. The true secret of power is knowing when to be like Sun Tzu and when to act like Machiavelli. If you are only strategic, you may be deceived. If you are only manipulative, you may be overthrown. But if you master both approaches, you control the game. The final question: now that you know these secrets, how will you use them? If you've made it this far, it's because you seek to understand power in a way that few do. And this is just the beginning. So, if this video made you think differently, hit the like button to support the channel and help spread this knowledge to more people. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. Here, we will continue exploring the secrets of philosophy, strategy, and power. And now that you understand Sun Tzu and Machiavelli, why not dive into the minds of other brilliant thinkers who shaped the world? Stay on the channel and choose your next video to take your understanding even further.